When it comes to the 90s and children's television, Nickelodeon is still at the top. They're still one of the highest rated TV shows, considering the fact that they mostly just air nothing but SpongeBob and failed Nickelodeon shows. Of course, one of my all-time favorite shows on Nickelodeon is Rugrats, a story about 4 babies, Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil, and how they go on imaginary and sometimes even perilous adventures. And in commemoration of the Rugrats reboot, which I'm just gonna say is okay, I won't be actually talking about the reboot because I know a lot of people will be talking about it and I don't want to annoy people about it over and over again. So I thought I'd do something a little more fun. I'm actually going to talk about every single Rugrats console video game I've actually played, whether they be childhood memories or just ones I've actually recently discovered. Some of these were not really easy to find, and trust me, we'll get to that when we get to that. So where better to start than the very beginning of the first Rugrats game series, and in my opinion one of the best, Rugrats Search for Reptar on the PlayStation 1. Now let me first get this over with before we continue on with the rest of the video games. Every single one of these are all published by THQ, but the games are all developed by other different companies. However, the developers tend to differ between certain games. And for Rugrats Search for Reptar's case, it was developed by N-Space. A lot of people have already talked about this game to death, so I'll be a little quick about this one. So the game begins with Tommy and his friends trying to find Tommy's missing Reptar puzzle pieces, 12 in total. And in order to do that, they have to either collect 15 Reptar bars to find one puzzle piece, or go through certain levels, which are actually redone moments of episodes from the show, which I thought was a really great homage. In fact, the moments are actually from some of my favorite episodes of the show, such as some moments like Chucky playing hide and seek while finding his glasses, though the story in that one was fairly different, literally playing mini golf at Ice Cream Mountain, and Grandpa's missing teeth. After beating every level, you'll automatically get a puzzle, but it's actually quicker to just to find the Reptar bars to get all the puzzle pieces. So, as a fun little challenge, I recommend this for some speedrunners. An entire playthrough of Rugrats Search for Reptar with the hashtag #NoReptarBarRun. I kinda failed because I really hate the circus level. No matter what I do, I cannot get Chucky to land perfectly. And it's kinda cool as you get to play as some of your favorite babies, with the exception of very few times playing as Phil and Lil. You tend to mostly play as either Tommy, Chucky, or even rare occasions Angelica. Though I will generally say one of the things that has not aged well is of course the camera controls and the babies running into a lot of walls, especially when you're traveling through the hub world of the Pickles house, which is actually pretty accurate to the show. Though of course beating the game, I mean yeah, Rugrats Search for Reptar is still a kid's game and I have my own personal biases for loving it, but it still suffers from early PS1 camera controls, so what are you gonna do? But that's still impressive for a licensed game in the third dimension, as most of them weren't really good. I mean, it's still a great kids game and I would highly recommend it. Though this also reminds me though, you better be careful when trying to find a copy, because true story, I bought this game 3 times. I also learned that there are 2 different types of disc designs for the game. But enough about that, let's talk about the sequel that came out roughly a year later, Rugrats Studio Tour. It's literally the same game, with some differences that are either good or bad. Same developers, N-Space. Same publisher, THQ. The controls, exactly the same. The plot this time is a little different. This time the parents and the babies are actually touring a studio known as Gigantomongous Studios. And in Rugrats fashion, the babies manage to sneak into a restricted area of the studio. This time included is Susie and Dill. However, when getting inside the movie set, Dill actually gets locked inside a high security part of the movie set, and the only way to rescue him is to find the scattered keys across the entire movie studio, which are all based off different types of movie themes, not really movie references. So I'll give them credit that they're not just doing like typical movie tropes that you can find in most video games nowadays, which is kind of funny considering my last video game I actually talked about was Beautiful Joe, which was nothing but movie references. Check it out if you haven't seen it. The game is still roughly the same, though the levels are more minigame based with different sets and types of film. There is of course 3D different types of adventures, racing, and of course the most wonky minecart mission you can ever play. But one of the things that the game definitely does suffer in is the 2D platforming. They didn't really have any in the last game, but it's pretty understandable why. In fact, a lot of people generally don't like the sequel. I actually kind of like it. Not as much as the first game, but it has its flaws. Not every video game is perfect. Plus, this is a mainline Rugrats game to have multiplayer, and it's kind of fun, especially with the go-karting. never pick the one with 8 laps. Though there are not really that many Rugrats references in this game, it's still a good time, and it did bring some of the good moments from the original back, like the golfing minigame. But it also brought back a lot of the stuff that was flawed in the original one, so it does make it technically an inferior version for having less content. Studio Tour is not fondly remembered, but I think it's still a recommendation if you like the first game, and we're looking for something a little quick and easy and different. Now, obviously the first 2 games are technically the best ones in the series, but it's understandable why, as the series technically goes downhill from here. And it starts off with Rugrats Scavenger Hunt on the Nintendo 64. Okay, I'm gonna get a lot of flack for saying this, but Scavenger Hunt is not that awful. Please, let me explain. This time around, this game was developed by Real-Time Associates, who are mostly known for Gex Enter the Gecko and other bad licensed games. There's not really much of a story or a plot in this game, it's just that the babies use their imagination to play board games. And if you can take a guess from that, yeah, this is a Mario Party clone, but yeah, not as good. For starters, the game does not have any mini-games whatsoever, but I feel like a lot of people give this game a little too much hate, though it's pretty understandable with only 4 playable characters, 3 boards, and literally nothing else. But it's kind of weird to say I had a little fun. I'm mostly explaining because there are 3 different game boards that have 3 different game modes. In Angelica's Temple, you actually have to team up with the babies to find all 4 ancient peace statues before Angelica finds her singular peace statue. So the point of the game is actually working together, making sure to scatter across all the different boards to find every single piece. But you can also accidentally find one of Angelica's pieces. And if you happen to run into her, she will actually take the piece or take cookies, which are somewhat of a currency to help you move to different spaces. I mean, in all honesty, it's pretty easy to win this one, unless you're very dedicated to find every piece on your own. Yeah, good luck with that. The second board is Pirate's Treasure Hunt, where you actually compete against the babies to find every single treasure, 4 hidden across the board. But this time around, Susie actually helps you find treasure if you have enough cookies. This one's more competitive and the most fun level to play with friends, especially when you land on the same spot as one of your friends, where you actually go against one another in a game of rock, paper, scissors, to some pretty funny situations, where you can actually steal some of their treasure pieces or even win some cookies, if you already have the same amount of treasure pieces. Probably my personal favorite board on this game, as it actually has the competitiveness that Mario Party is known for. But the last one is pretty bad. Ooh. I'm of course talking about Reptar Rally, the worst board in the game, as you're supposed to collect 4 different types of candies that is not based on the type of baby you're playing. And of course you're also these disgusting versions of Reptar babies. One of the few times I'll say the N64 definitely doesn't make them look pretty. But the major problem with this board is the fact how annoying it is to try to find every single piece of candy, because you have to go to a specific area, which is very hard to get to. You need to make sure to land on that one multiple times in order to get the certain amount. In fact, I didn't even really play this one. I just put all the characters on CPU and just watched them race, which actually I think would be like a fun thing, known as CPU races. Maybe that'll be a fun little stream series I'll do, if you want to check on my live stream. Anyways, back to the game. I should just generally say this game does get a bad rep, mostly because it's just going around boards and trying to find the pieces as quickly as you can. I mean, that's why they call it Rugrats Scavenger Hunt for a reason. But I generally think there is some fun in the game, especially when you play games like the Treasure Hunt mode. I mean, it's still better than the next game we're talking about. The very worst Rugrats game I've ever played so far. Rugrats in Paris, the movie, the game, on the N64. May God help my soul. So how can I say this is the worst game in the series? Well, for starters, the developer is Avalanche Software. You might know as the guys who helped make the Attack and the Power of Juju games. But they're also known for some pretty infamous games like Dragon Ball Z Saga and Mortal Kombat Mythologies. In fact, the game runs horribly, as you can tell from this horribly compressed audio in this cutscene, said by new Rugrats character Kimmy.
Usually Euro Reptar amusement parks are happily placed, but not today. Robo-Snail got the princess trapped in a tower on the volcano. We got to save her.
If your ears aren't bleeding right now, what she was trying to say is the princess has been kidnapped by Robo-Snail, but the babies need to wake up Reptar in order to save her. But in order to wake him, they need to get the Reptar helmet to control Reptar, and the only way to get that is to get as many golden tickets in the park in Euro Reptar Land. which is where the film mostly takes place. Ironic considering it's called Rugrats in Paris, not Rugrats in For Reptar. And if you can tell from my single player playthrough of this game, I tend to mostly play as Chucky as he is my favorite Rugrat. And to start things off with the hub world of For Reptar, oh god, the babies have tank controls, why? The game has a hard time running to begin with, now I have to watch the babies run in the most tank-like way possible, while getting stuck and having to turn them like tanks. I get it, they're babies, they don't really know how to walk that well. But don't put that in your hub world game where it's just a slog to get through every single mission / mini game. Most are pretty bad, such as skee ball, which is bad, ball tossing, which doesn't work, pie tossing, which is literally the same thing and is also bad, bumper cars, which, okay, yeah, actually I kind of like that one. But there is this one goal-based one that I can literally break the game entirely by literally scoring 3 goals and then running into the guy throughout the rest of the game. And after dying too many times to the final boss, I was just literally done with this game. I don't know if this is the same way with the PlayStation version, but I generally think still this is the worst Rugrats game I've ever played. But if there's only one thing I can say positive about it, is at least the N64 cartridge is cool. And if I can say one thing about Avalanche, hey, at least they'll eventually make Disney Infinity and some other good Disney games in the future. But sadly, they also made another game with the Rugrats, and the last one. Rugrats Royal Ransom. And of course, I'll be playing the GameCube version. Let's get this over with. So I can generally say my first problem with the game is the fact that, for starters, they don't even have interior, the house design right. And as a Rugrats fan, I find that offending. So the game actually begins, and Stu actually builds a new playground known as the Play Place 3000, which is an unbelievable playground that definitely feels like a lawsuit ready to happen. And in Rugrats fashion yet again, Stu leaves the babies with Grandpa and hopefully nothing goes wrong. But of course, Angelica enters the play place and actually takes the babies' toys. Hence the name Royal Ransom. I mean, some of the toys actually make sense, like Chucky's Wawa, Kimmy's Super Thing. Though at first I was really skeptical on the lion, but then I remember there's an episode where Tommy's favorite toy is a lion, which he names Henry. And for feeling little, a can of worms. Really? You could have used a Reptar doll, or even Robo-Snail. So the babies try to do everything in their power to get back their toys and make it to the top of the tower. And to do that, they have to enter different areas and play different super big and lengthy mini games that are just a slog to sit through. And in order for the babies to save their toys, they have to pay money to actually enter the playground. I am not joking. Though there are different missions, they all use the same hub area. A lot of missions definitely vary, such as getting to a certain area of the game to defeat clowns, caging all the monkeys, building a snowman. But the problem is the game makes it such a slog to sit through. Ugh. I mean, the babies control fine, but what's really weird is the babies have a double jump. They can barely just jump. But if you want the worst controlling thing in the game, it's the racing modes, especially the boat racing. My god, it's horrible. And you know how they make the racing a pain in the ass to get through? In order to beat the mission, you not have to win the race not once, not twice, but 3 times. And if you fail once, you automatically fail. And then your baby is thrown down the slide and you have to spend 100 coins just to get to the next level. And to make it even worse, even if you do beat the mission and get the battery, that's not how you beat the game. You have to backtrack through so many missions to find as many batteries as you can in order to get to the next world. Especially when you get to the 3rd level of the tower, it gets crazy annoying how many batteries you need just to beat the game. But hey, at least you can use real life money to actually buy Susie as a playable character. As you can probably take a guess, I think Rugrats Royal Ransom is so boring, with tons of minigames that outstay their welcome and are a slog to sit through, and get very derivative and flat out annoying. I would not recommend getting this one. I mean, at least it plays better than Rugrats in Paris, but it's still my second least favorite game. And with that, that's all the Rugrats console games. With the exception of Totally Angelica, that's mostly because I am going through the main Rugrats games, all about nothing but all the Rugrats, not just a specific Rugrat. Plus, I also discovered that Totally Angelica is on the GBA, so if you guys want to see the Rugrats handheld games in the future, just make sure to like and subscribe and ring a bell for notifications. But if I were to rank every game I've played right now, I would obviously say Search for Reptar is the best one, followed by Studio Tour. Scavenger Hunt I actually think is still fun, with Royal Ransom being a slog to play through, even on normal difficulty, and obviously Rugrats in Paris the game being the worst of the bunch. Thanks for watching, guys, and you can call me a lot of things on this channel, but you can't call me lucky.